Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we're going to be going over my 1cc in Rolling Gunner on original mode. This is something I've been chipping away at for about 2 weeks now, just like playing here and there in the evenings and whatnot. Most of that is in the training mode, just really cracking down on each stage and just figuring out what to do, a route that I was like very content with. Now, one thing I will say is I was not going for rank, which pretty much means I'm not going to trigger the TLB. That's not part of this run. Based on the approach that I wanted to use for just getting my first clear, like a first survival clear, there was no way that was going to happen. Just based on how much I just don't use my hyper and just have the rank climbing and climbing. So now interestingly enough, I had not, and I still haven't, started dipping into the last 2 stages for figuring things out the way I did. I had the first 4 out of the 6, pretty much down to a T, but last night I had a run where I made it to the final boss, or 2 nights ago, I mean. I made it to the final boss for the first time ever, and I was very close to clearing it. I think it had started its final attack, but I just didn't have any bombs left, no lives left, anything like that. So it was quite literally, and I was far away from having my hyper ready. So it was just like, okay, this attack is insane. So it's just, you can only hang on so long before something just gets messed up. But anyway, last night I had 2 runs where I made it to the final boss, so I knew I was close. But in ways I was kind of thankful that I hadn't cleared it that first time that I made it to the final boss, because I did want to go back into the stages and figure it out more. And I would say that I still haven't done that because I cleared it kind of before I thought I would. But I do want to still buckle down and just really figure out stages 5 and 6 so that I know what to do, because I do want to trigger the TLB, which does not happen in this run. For my first clear, I was kind of just going for an approach that I really enjoy, where I more or less only use the hyper if necessary. And so in that sense, I'm not, like, the rank isn't going up almost ever. And then with bomb use and stuff later in the stages, that decreases it, of course. So anyway, we're just going to kind of be going over the stages a little bit. I'll share some of the experiences and whatnot. As of right now, I'm not sure if I'm going to go for an original mode, one like all clear, like with the TLB, or if I'll just start jumping into expert mode now, since that is on the agenda for me. It's definitely something I want to do, but I haven't decided what I'm going to prioritize yet. But anyway, it was really cool just having that run last night where I just had a really clean and solid first handful of stages, and I thought, you know what, this is going really well. If I just make sure I use my bombs instead of losing them, I could very well just be at least making it to the final boss a 3rd time tonight. So that was really cool to see how this panned out. So yeah, there are a few little things here and there where my timing was a little off for one reason or another, but for the most part, the stages, the first, I think 4, pretty much go exactly as I do them in training mode, which I think is where most of my time went over the last number of days, just because I really love being able to isolate the experience, just do things and really crack into just, yeah, figuring out what to do and how to do it and what I enjoy best in that sense. So I'm really excited. There are some really, really wicked parts in this game that just throw surprises your way, some really cool situations and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just be pointing out some of that. I don't really have too many specifics. This is more or less just sharing yeah, how much I love the game, to be honest, and just touching on some of the stuff that happens here, because it is a wild time. What's interesting is the day I almost cleared it, two nights ago, that was the day I put out my Coffee and Shmups episode on being further than you realize. So I thought it was really fitting that this happened the same day, where I thought this would be maybe, I'm not even sure how long, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows, just to really get things figured out. But it was just very fascinating to see that episode go up, and then all of a sudden I'm realizing, holy smokes, like I'm doing well enough that this could actually just be cleared any time. Even though I'd still prefer to, be a little more knowledgeable and be able to execute things a little better in the last 2 stages, as I mentioned earlier. So anyway, we're coming up to one of the wildest attacks ever. I am really stoked that I have finally put this together, because for a long time, like, this has always just been a dread of an attack to deal with. So I'm really pleased that I'm much more confident with that attack in particular. And there's just something really incredible about this game. A lot of things, actually. And in a future episode, more of that kind of stuff will be revealed. I haven't officially announced what series is coming, but a new series is on the way, which I'm stoked about sharing. But yeah, everything from just the way you need to aim and the movement and just the way the mechanics function, like, everything is just fantastic in this game. I absolutely love this game. It's easily a favorite, and I'm so glad that I got back into it, because to be honest, as I mentioned, I think in the casual mode clear, I got really burned out on this 2 years ago, and I never really thought about when I might come back to it. It was kind of just like, okay, I know about the game, I remember loving it, but I was never thinking about it in terms of, oh yeah, I want to go clear things someday. And then it was like, well, you know what, why not just jump in and see how things go again, like, just actually commit to it. And yeah, so I'm stoked. I'm just loving it. In ways, it's like a perfect fit for me, because the way in which I love to just be meticulous with training and breaking certain things down to a science, this is just like a dream game for me. Because it throws enough at you that you can't just brute force your way through the stages. Like, you're gonna get nowhere if you do that. So in that sense, it's just ideal. And oh man, I cannot say enough good. That was a fumble right there. Normally I angle it, but it still worked out well enough. But that was one instance where I was like, oh my goodness, have I just fumbled something here? But I'm glad that panned out. But this, I remember this stage even 2 years ago, and then even the first little while over the last 2 weeks when I was starting to dig into this for 3 or 4 nights straight. This stage was really tricky to figure out, but when you do finally piece things together, it's incredibly satisfying and just a lot of fun, because you know what to do, you feel that much more confident, and it's just very rewarding seeing the time and energy and focus you put into training and breaking things down. You just see that pay off, and then you see progress, because you're getting more and more consistent with the route that you have then put together. And I just think that's such a cool thing about these games. And it really does shine in Rolling Gunner. Oh man, I just love this game. So in the past, this attack here, stuff like this would trip me up quite a bit, but this time around I just kind of had this different awareness for how to tackle things like that. And it's not like you're dodging every single bullet you see. Sometimes you can let 2 of them pass and then just do a single tap upwards and then wait for another 2 to pass, instead of assuming you have to do more than you actually need to do. And yeah, here was another thing where I fumbled. Normally I trigger it right here and get the big purple guy with the blast from the second layer of the hyper, whatever it's called, but I had just done it early, so it kind of fizzled before that. But when I came through anyway. It was, yeah, great to see. This is a really, really fantastic boss fight. Awesome design, wicked colors, just... Oh, man. Such a great variety of attack types, too. Like, this... The other ones, they certainly throw stuff at you, but this is where I feel the run really starts to demand your all. I'll word it that way. It's just, there's something truly wild about this boss and where things go. And just the different poses, like, oh, there's just something so cool about this giant mech up in the sky. So some people circle around with the rings or the lines that are going out. I don't do that because you're doing less damage that way. I always want to keep both streams of firepower, like the green and the blue, on them at all times during that attack. And then it's funny because in the past, I would never have thought to circle the boss like I did there. But I think just as you play more games and get more experience, you kind of just naturally think a little more smart about how to approach things or what you can do. And so this time around when I was playing the game, as opposed to 2 years ago, it just made sense. Like, oh, okay, if things are targeting me, why wouldn't I just circle and damage him from the back first? And then that just leaves all this free space at the front for a little while anyway. And that is like a dream technique compared to what I did as a more novice player back in the day. So things like that are just really cool to see, just where you know your mind is evolving with these games and it's not just staying stagnant. So this level can be really tricky, but I had a lot of fun figuring this one out specifically because if you don't know the game, there's a section that we come up to fairly quickly, which is kind of like it's a vertical section, so we're going down this shaft. We'll get to it really soon because it doesn't take long to get there, but that part was kind of tricky. And it was the same thing. Once I figured it out, I was thinking, oh my god, this allows me to just get further and further into the run without all these slip-ups happening and interrupting my longevity, more or less. Everything that you can possibly do in games like this to just keep yourself alive just means you're going to be that much closer to clearing it. And so when you have those little moments of a breakthrough, it's definitely something to celebrate. Because at first, stuff is coming from all over the place. You have these things going up the line. It can get pretty chaotic. And oh man, it's part of what I love about this game. No side of the screen is safe. Like, sure, there may be times where you can use a safe spot. You'll even see some of this, some of that stuff in here. But I just cannot get enough of Roll and Gunner. I absolutely love what it demands of the player. Just how much attention you need to pay and how much learning is involved. It's truly an incredible experience. There are definitely better ways to go about this fight in particular. But, like that blue attack, for instance, ideally I'm not in a hyper state, because then you can easily avoid the blue lines that come out, because there's a gap in between each little burst. You just need to time the positioning and then avoid the pink shots, but that's not how it went this time. Sometimes avoiding that last attack, if you're stuck in the middle of like the 4 beam, and then the 5th, the row of 5, or the 5 lines come out, that can be tricky. But anyway, we made it through and we're on to blowing up these enemies. I just love the snappy aiming you can do with this. This is easily one of my favorite songs in the whole game, by the way. And one of my favorite parts is coming up. I think just because of the sound... like, oh, man. It's not like it's anything crazy. It's just the sound of that jet coming in. Not like you heard it, because I have it pretty low. But when that shows up, combined with the music, the part of the song that the music is at, is just so cool. Oh my god. It's one of those games where sometimes you're kind of... You'll feel finished with a game when you clear it. It's the complete opposite for me. When I play Rolling Gunner and you're doing well and you clear the game, you just want to keep playing. You just want to do the next thing or improve the current run, or like difficulty mode. So at this point in the run, I was pretty stoked because I have all these bombs still, and all my lives up until this point. And because of my training, I know how to do this fight ideally with a single bomb, and I know when to time my hypers, so I wasn't going into this fight feeling any doubts. It was kind of just like, okay, there's a chance I fumble something, of course, but I'm pretty confident with this boss battle. Hyper like right about here, and then just avoid that. I realized I was about to take a hit there, so I just bombed, but normally I just am right in between those blue things. And there again, I wasn't going to take a chance because I realized my positioning was a little off. And I think actually I might take a hit in this fight. Normally I do this whole section without being in a hyper mode, but that's just not how it panned out, as you can see. Oh, I think I used a third bomb because I wasn't paying attention, and I could have fired off the second layer of my hyper, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, as if I didn't take advantage of that. But sometimes you're just so focused on the bullets, like you miss the window of opportunity. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does. So 3 bombs in here, holy smokes. But it's better than taking a hit and losing all of them instantaneously, because that just... oh, that is such a waste. And I just think it's so cool. These little scenes in between each stage. Even though we have that scene where you're attaching to like the other vessel portion or whatever you want to call it, this is the first time I've actually noticed that our ship sprite looks different. I have never once thought to even look at that sort of thing, but I'm just noticing that now. That's really cool. And of course it makes sense because we did just attach. So this stage, I had sort of practiced maybe up until about here. So I kind of had a bit of an idea how to approach it, but I wasn't really sold on, and hadn't put time into figuring out the rest of the stage in a way where I feel very confident about what to do, where to be, when to hyper, and all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty pleased that this one went decently enough. And I think just actually using bombs and things here and there instead of losing them just makes such a huge difference. It's not even funny. So this halfway boss can be pretty pretty nuts at times. It's easy to fumble stuff. This is a position I had never thought to use, but I was reminded about that spot from a friend of mine. And also not being greedy with your hypers, like wanting to wait as long as possible. I found that I was just a little more fine with firing things off when necessary, and instead of just attempting to get the most of everything, which is more ideal, of course, but at the same time, if it means messing something up, and that was just a crazy moment. Holy smokes, like, we could have easily fumbled something there. Oh, we just lost our bombs. And then this was just a bit of a brutal situation. I wasn't... Oh man, there was no way we were coming out of that. Just so much gold. Look at those medals. And one of my favorite bosses too. I just love the design of this thing. So for the most part, I just like to... That was just silly positioning. Normally I just go through that like nothing. It's easy. I just stay to the bottom portion and weave through. But that's not how it went this time. And I wasn't going to take a chance there. I realized that I had left myself in a really risky situation. But I was thinking, okay, well, at least the bomb got us through the bulk of that, so now we can just easily avoid this stuff and, yeah, stockpile medals and just be ready for this next portion. But it can be a pretty precarious part of the fight, that is for sure. Especially when you were in hyper. I haven't practiced this boss very much, and I did not want to be hypering during this part specifically, but that's where I found myself, so I just went with it. And this is another part where you really do need to just put a bit of time into figuring out a reasonable way. As much as I don't like firing while in front of a boss because I'm just doing less damage, I just found circling with it to a certain degree was the way to go for this. And I was not going to risk taking a hit. Just epic fight. One of my favorite boss entrances ever, when we see it come from the background and everything, and then we just destroy it with this brilliant display. Super cool stuff. And we are heading to the moon for the final stage. And, oh man, this stage goes places. It's bonkers. It is truly bonkers. There is just a lot going on. Oh my. And interestingly enough, this is I think one of the first runs where I actually start using the correct shot, which is something Bare Knuckle Rue explained to me, and I had no idea about that. And so that's a faster way to charge your meter. So I did a little bit of that in this stage, which makes a huge difference. There were certain sections of the game where attempting to go from 0 to 1,000 within a certain, or before a certain part, was very close to sometimes not pulling it off, but that is just like a miracle by comparison, because you just get so much more when you're using like the free-flowing, taking out little enemies. I was not gonna risk that. Oh my god, what was I doing? There's just an insane amount of dangerous parts in this stage. It's a wild time. I don't even get it. This is more or less me just doing whatever I possibly can, since I have no idea how this stage, or what my best approach is for this stage. Like, oh my god, that was so brutal, taking that hit. And that's another safe spot that I was reminded of recently. Even though it can be a lot of fun, and sometimes I do enjoy just being in the middle of that, I just figured, you know what, if there's any chance we can just do this and just not lose lives, then let's do it. So here's the next vertical section. We go down this shaft, and it's like 10 times more intense than the one we do in stage 4? Yeah, stage 4. There are just some really close calls here, that is for sure. Oh, like, as if. Thank you for the bullet cancels. Holy smokes. There's just so much going on right now. Like, what? And the fact that when you get to the bottom, it's just all this chaos right away as everything starts shooting up at you. Man, and the fact that those top left yellow tanks keep showing up for the longest time, and oh, little fumbles like that, just not having a clue how to be prepared for that part, since I haven't practiced this far into the game. Just, oh, it's just crazy. So at this point, like, oh man, being down to 1 life plus like the one that remains after that little image vanishes from the top corner. So 2 lives, essentially. Oh, I'm just thinking, man, I just really need to not fumble anything else right now, because we aren't even at the boss yet, and that's going to be a whole other story. I love these big ships. They're just, oh, they're so cool. But anyway, here we are. My counter is at 0. which is yeah, tricky for going into this fight. I go as long as I can, and then I'm just like, you know what, I'm not taking chances. I got 4 bombs. I'm not gonna mess with anything. I don't need to, like, for a first clear, I don't need to take chances. Let's just get this thing filled to 1,000 and go from there. Oh my god! I did not want to use that bomb for that. Oh man, oh man. Now in practice, I can do this whole section without hypering or bombing, but again, like, when you kind of just want to, when you know you're so close, you like, there's no reason not to just use what's there before it's gone. Oh my god. I think this might actually be the first time I have ever made it that far through that attack pattern. So man, that was crazy. Because normally I just bomb through it or hyper through it, but... And then this part can be pretty tricky, but... We just thankfully didn't take hits that could have easily been hits. So yeah, when I was this close, I was like, okay, use a bomb, fill my thing up, and just make sure I do not get hit. I don't care what I have to do for the last little bit. I have my hyper, I'm going to use bombs, I don't care what's going on, we are just bringing this thing down now. And there it is. So yeah, it was a pretty bonkers run. Obviously a lot of room for figuring out the preferred approach to the last 2 stages. But all in all, I'm really stoked to have cleared this. It's one of my 2023 goals checked off the list. And I just absolutely love this game. It is so good. Crazy explosion. Mission complete. So there you have it. That's a 1cc. Now let's say my rank had been somehow high enough to trigger the TLB. There's no way that would have gone anywhere because you would need serious resources. And I was in such a... Like, I had 1 bomb left at the end there. No lives. That would have just been crazy to somehow pull the TLB off. But yeah, that'll be interesting to tackle at some point, either in original or expert. We'll see. But for expert, there's original TLB and expert TLB, or even just a normal 1cc in expert, that will certainly take probably a lot more cleaning up. I think this scene is really cool. Oh, wow. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments if you have played this game, if you have beaten it, or maybe you're currently playing it and you're tackling a certain section. Just feel whatever, share whatever you feel like, yeah, dropping down below. But yeah, I'm stoked to keep just digging into this game. It's just fantastic. So that's enough babbling from me. Thank you again. Have an awesome day, and we will see you next time.